stops us in our tracks. Bravely we prove in our striving, trudging together each day. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Trudge. Sometimes the multiple daily trudge. Maybe I should call it the double daily trudge when I do it a second time, or the quadruple daily trudge. We're going to be in the big book today. There is a solution. Reading some of our basic text stuff. You know, there's only so many things that I can cover, but thankfully it's enough that, next time I get to it might be a year later. But we do a lot of repeating in recovery, and the reason that we do that is to remind us, my thinker's kind of broken, and it will forget. I mean, heck, when I was drinking, I would forget that I was in jail the weekend before, and I go out, do the same darn things. Hi, Michelle. It's good to see you. Good to have you. We have pretty good noon meeting. That seems to be going well. Good stuff. It's Friday for most people. Well, it's might be a different time for other people. Yeah, getting forward to the weekend. A lot of people came back this week after they gotta be careful of those lurking notions. The thing is a lot of people that come into the program in January for several different reasons. Maybe it's a New Year's resolution. Maybe it's family, got DUI. A lot of DUIs happen there's a lot more popo out there during the holidays. What usually happens by the time St. Patrick's rolls around, you're hitting that 3 months. So I feel better, look better. Things are great. Things are going great. Yeah, I can get away with a couple of drinks. And there it is, those lurking notions. Lurking notion means, well, if I stay sober for this long, I can go ahead and have a drink. Or, if my daughter ever gets married, I can certainly have a drink at her wedding. Those sorts of things. Those would be lurking notions. But we're going to get into the chapter. There is a solution today. Welcome to Daily Trudge. My name is Dion. That's my name, and you may wear it out if you like. If you're here, please say hello, whether you're watching the live or the rewatch. We're going to go ahead and get started here. All right. I need the phone. I need my book. If you would like to follow along, I'm going to be on page 17 in the big book, which is our nickname for the book of Alcoholics Anonymous. So if you're looking for the book, do not look for the don't go look for the big book. You ain't gonna find it. You'll get you'll get a different book. We want the book Alcoholics Anonymous. Hi, Amber. Amber says, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, OMG, OMG, OMG." Actually, when you say it, it's just omg. Says, I just scored the sickest old school kid Broncos winter coat. Nice. Good for you. Good job. Still fitting in children's coats there, are you, Amber? I'm just kidding. And got a pin from Super Bowl 32. 32, huh? Wow. That was a long time ago. That was a long time ago. All right, let's get started. There is a solution. And there is a solution is where the big book kind of starts. Right? Is where the big book starts. Before this, we had Doctor's Opinion, we had Bill's Story, we had the prefaces, we had the forwards to the first, second, and third edition, and the fourth edition. I figured it was for Isaac Amber. Just want to give you a hard time. All right. So what does it start out? It starts out with we. And it starts out with we because we do this together. This is not an I program. It's not a me program. It is a we program. So we of Alcoholics Anonymous know thousands of men and women who are just as hopeless as Bill. Nearly all have recovered. They have solved the drink problem. There's that recovered word. All right. If you listen to me enough, you know what recovered is. We are average Americans. All sections of this country and many of its occupations are represented, as well as many political, economic, social, and religious backgrounds. We are people who would not normally mix, but there exists among us a fellowship, a friendliness, and an understanding which is indescribably wonderful. We are like the passengers of a great liner the moment after rescue from shipwreck, when camaraderie, joyousness, and democracy pervade the vessel from steerage captain's table. Unlike the feelings of the ship's passengers, however, our joy and escape from disaster does not subside as we go our individual ways. The feeling of having shared in common peril is one of the element in empowerment which binds us, but that in itself would never have held us together as we are now joined. Right? So there's not many jobs that aren't represented, occupations that are not represented in AA. They're, every type of religion is in AA. What it comes down to is this: alcohol doesn't care. It doesn't understand certain things. It doesn't understand time. It doesn't understand gender. In fact, if there's anything out there that is equal opportunity, it's alcohol. Okay, alcohol is not sexist. It's not misogynistic. It's not a racist. It's not a Nazi. Right? It's not a boy or a girl. It's not a lot of things. It just doesn't understand it. It's a liquid. It is a non-entity. Huh. Okay. Your DNA, right? Because I tend to believe that we are born with this disease. Your DNA doesn't understand that stuff either. All right. The tremendous fact for every one of us is that we have discovered a common solution. We have a way out on which we can absolutely agree and upon which we can join in brotherly and harmonious action. This is the great news this book carries to those who suffer from alcoholism, right? And the thing is there's Democrats and Republicans in AA also. We don't argue this shit in this arena. No, we found a common bond. We found something that we can agree on. Name another program that doesn't. Name another one. Name a religion that doesn't. Oh, wait. Doesn't exist. There are other programs that are out there, but they're not quite like AA. See, in AA, you can just say that you're a member of Alcoholics Anonymous and you can chair a meeting. Smart Recovery, you got to go through the classes first. You got to get certified first. We don't require things like that. That means that somebody is higher upon the rung than somebody else. Okay, Alcoholics Anonymous is true and even equality in all of its forms. It surpasses a lot of things in this world, including religious and political views. So when people sit there and tell me that, oh, it's just gone too far, there's no way that we can do this or do that, but yet I'm in Alcoholics Anonymous and we do it every single day. Could you imagine that you could only be a Democrat or only be a Republican in order to go into a meeting? That'd make it extremely biased, would it not? Of course it would. An illness of this sort, and we have come to believe it as an illness, involves those about us in a way no other human sickness can. If a person has cancer, all are sorry for him and no one is angry or hurt, but not so with the alcoholic illness. For with it there goes annihilation of all things worthwhile in life. It engulfs all whose lives touches the sufferers. It breeds misunderstanding, fierce resentment, financial insecurity, disgusted friends and employers, warped lives of blameless children, sad wives of parents. Anyone can increase the list. Alcoholism is just seems to be different in a lot of other ways, right? It kind of sucks to think that I am bodily and mentally different from most of the people in this world. Right? But if you can get to a place of understanding, of acceptance and awareness about who you are, you'll find that you're really not that. Yeah, I mean, you are different, but you're not so different. It doesn't mean that you don't belong. You'll understand that just because somebody else is a little different doesn't mean that they should have to sit there and suffer. Just because they're a little different, maybe they dress a little different, look a little different, maybe that tattoos all over, We hope this volume will inform and comfort those who are or may be affected. There are many highly competent psychiatrists who have dealt with us found it sometimes impossible to persuade an alcoholic to discuss this situation without reservation. Strangely enough, wives, parents, and intimate friends usually find us even more unapproachable than the psychiatrist and the doctor. We talked about this a little bit earlier in the doctor's opinion, if you listen to it. Right. That's why the responsibility statement is so important. Okay? And the responsibility statement goes as such. I'm responsible when anyone anywhere reaches out for help. I want the hand of AA to be there. And for that, I am responsible. That was written in 1950 and it is written for the professionals. It was written at our first national conference. Okay? And we're talking about the professionals whenever they need our help. I was just in that situation this morning where I went to see about my finger. We didn't get that taken care of. They set me an appointment, but there was somebody that was, where you go check in that needed help. Yeah. And I was glad. I was happy to assist. And she said it too. She said, he wants to quit. He really does, but he can't seem to do it. I'm like, I understand that. I know that frustration. Absolutely, I do. So I gave her a little bit of my information and tried to help her too. She's clearly a very, very caring mom. Right? But the ex-problem drinker who has found this solution, who is properly armed with facts about himself, can generally win the entire confidence of another alcoholic in a few hours. Until such an understanding is reached, little or nothing can be accomplished. All right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cover what we call the page 21 drunk. So I'm going to go to page 21, and I'm not really going to cover it. I'm just going to read it. And what I want you to do is see where you see yourself. If you're if you're wondering whether or not you're an alcoholic or not, this is a good place to kind of try and figure it out. If you see yourself in any of this place, in any of these places that I'm about to read, then there's a chance that you might have alcoholism, right? But we must remember that alcoholism is only done one way. There's only one diagnosis, and it is self-diagnosis. It is one of the only diseases. The other addictions are like NA and CA, okay, those would kind of work the same way, where self-diagnosis is the only diagnosis. An a doctor, a therapist, a psychiatrist, a psychologist cannot diagnose you with alcoholism. I know you think I'm crazy, huh? They can't. It is an admittance. They write it differently. They will say alcohol use disorder, substance use disorder, right? Which is something a little different. I'm not going to quite get into all of that. Okay, so let's remember that self-diagnose. This is one of the only places where self-diagnosis is the only true diagnosis. All right, but what about the real alcoholic? He may start off as a moderate drinker. He may or may not become a continuous hard drinker, but at some stage of his drinking career, he begins to lose all control of his liquor consumption once he starts to drink. Here's a fellow who has been puzzling you, especially in his lack of control. He does absurd, incredible, tragic things while drinking. He is a real Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. That's usually the one that gets people. He is seldom mildly intoxicated. He is always more or less insanely drunk. His disposition while drinking resembles his normal nature but little. He may be one of the finest fellows in the world, yet let him drink for a day and it frequently becomes disgustingly and even dangerously antisocial. He has a positive genius for getting tight at exactly the wrong moment, particularly when some important decision must be made or engagement kept. He is often perfectly sensible and well-balanced concerning everything except liquor, but in that respect, he is incredibly dishonest and selfish. He often possesses special abilities and aptitudes and has a promising career ahead of him. He uses his gifts to build up a bright outlook for his family and himself, and then pulls the structure down on his head by a senseless series of sprees. He is a fellow who goes to bed so intoxicated he ought to sleep the clock around. Yet early the next morning, he searches madly for the bottle he misplaced the night before. If he can afford it, he may have liquor concealed all over his house to be certain no one gets an entire supply from him to throw down the waste pipe. As matters go worse, he begins to use a combination of high-powered sedative and liquor to quiet his nerves so he can go to work. Then comes the day when he simply cannot make it and gets drunk all over again. Perhaps he goes to a doctor who gives him morphine or some sedative with which to taper off. Then he begins to appear at hospitals and sanitariums. This is by no means a comprehensive picture of a true alcoholic, as our behavior patterns vary, but this description should identify him roughly. All right. A lot of places that I could find myself in that reading. Not all of it. We tend to vary, but all of it does contain one thing. That would be denial. It would be denial, which is not a river in Africa. All right. So we're going to go to page 25 now. Go to page 25. There is a solution. Almost none of us like the self-searching, the leveling of our pride, the confessions of shortcomings, which the process requires for its successful consummation. But we saw that it really worked in others, and we have become to believe in the hopelessness and futility of life as we had been living it. So what have they said here? Well, they're talking a little bit about the psychic change. All right. We saw it really, and we had come to believe that in the hopelessness and futility is the life we've been living it. That's a psychic change. It means you're just changing your mind. You don't want to behave this way anymore. You don't want to keep drinking. You don't want that lifestyle anymore. And even if it's just you don't want it anymore, fine with me. Works for me, right? And before that, it talks about some of the things that we do. You know, in the beginning, most of us do it begrudgingly, and it's okay. You can be begrudging and willing at the same time. I don't wanna, but I'm willing. I don't want, just like I don't really want to do the dishes, but I'm willing to do them. Same thing. Nobody really wants to do chores, but we're willing to do them. And that willingness helps us get to a place of action. And when therefore we were approached by those in whom the problem had been solved, there was nothing left for us but to pick up the simple kit of spiritual tools laid at our feet. We have found much of heaven, and we have been rocketed into a fourth dimension of existence, of which we had not even dreamed. We'd like to think we know what the fourth dimension is, but we're going to go.
The Mike Johnson guy, the speaker.
What does it mean to be rocketed into the fourth dimension? In spiritual context, being rocketed into the fourth dimension often signifies a profound spiritual awakening or experience where one transcends the limitations of physical, mental, and emotional realms. Okay. You're missing spiritual realm, entering a state of harmony and connection with a higher power. It's a new way of life. It's seeing things different. Half of the ninth step promises are being rocketed into the fourth dimension. God, we suddenly realize God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. Right? Example in text, not a scientific concept. The term fourth dimension is used metaphorically to represent a spiritual realm that is beyond the three dimensions of physical space. All right. So we have been rocketed into a fourth dimension, right, of an existence which we had not even dreamed. The great fact is just this, and nothing less. That we have had deep and effective spiritual experiences which have revolutionized our whole attitude toward life, toward our fellows, and toward God's universe. Okay? Now that we looked it up, that kind of fits, doesn't it? Makes a little bit more sense. All right? Because our whole attitude has changed. We do what's called a 180. We make a complete turnaround. Where we were walking in one direction, we turn around and start walking in the other direction. Because it was the wrong way. It was the wrong path to follow. The central fact of our lives today is the absolute certainty that our Creator has entered into our hearts and lives in a way which is indeed miraculous. He has commenced to accomplish those things for us which we could never do by ourselves. If you are seriously alcoholic as we were, we believe there is no middle of the road solution. We were in a position where life was becoming impossible. And if we had passed into the region from which there was no return through human aid, we had but two alternatives. One was to go on to the bitter end, blotting out the consciousness of our intolerable situation as best we could, and the other to accept spiritual help. We did this because we honestly wanted to, and we were willing to make the effort. I'm going to be reading kind of fast because it's going to be a story, so I don't have much to say on it, but it'll kind of explain what they're saying at the end here. So, a certain American businessman had ability, good sense, and high character. For years, he floundered from one sanitarium to another. He had consulted the best-known American psychiatrists. Then he had gone to Europe, placing himself in the care of the celebrated physician, the psychiatrist, Dr. Jung. who prescribed for him. Though experience had made him skeptical, he finished his treatment with unusual confidence. His physical and mental condition were unusually good. Above all, he believed he had acquired such a profound knowledge of the inner workings of his mind that its hidden springs and relapse was unthinkable. Nevertheless, he got drunk in a short time. More baffling still, he could not give himself no satisfactory explanation for his fall. So he returned to the doctor, whom he admired, and asked him point blank why he could not recover. He wished above all things to regain self-control. He seemed quite rational and well-balanced with respect to other problems, yet he had no control whatever over alcohol. Why was this? Now, isn't it weird that we have a lot of willpower, and you're going to use your willpower in this program, especially in that 9th step, okay? Sometimes we have to use our willpower in order to get things done. There's part of that willingness. But when it comes to alcohol, I have none. It's none. So what I did in the beginning is I gave everything up, even though I knew I had willpower over certain things. And those things would be given back later on when I was able to use them and not abuse them. That was the difference, is I was abusing those characteristics. All right. Anyway, he begged the doctor to tell him the whole truth, and he got it. Imagine Dr. Young, and to this day, one of the best psychiatrists in the world. To this day. To tell him the whole truth, and he got, in the doctor's judgment, he was utterly hopeless. He could never regain his position in society, and he would have to place himself under lock and key or hire a bodyguard if he expected to live long. That was the great physician's opinion. But this man still lives and is a free man. He does not need a bodyguard, nor is he confined. He can go anywhere on this earth where other free men may go without disaster, provided he remains willing to maintain a certain simple attitude. Some of our alcoholic readers may think they can do without spiritual help. Let us tell you the rest of the conversation our friend had with his doctor. The doctor said, "You have the mind of a chronic alcoholic. I have never seen one single case recover where that state of mind existed to the extent that it does in you." Our friend felt as though the gates of hell had closed in on him with a clang. He's not wrong. Not wrong. It's exactly what happened. He said to the doctor, "Is there no exception?" "Yes," replied the doctor, "there is. Exception to such cases of yours have been occurring since early times. Here and there, once in a while, alcoholics have had what they call vital spiritual experiences. To me, these occurrences are a phenomenon. They appear to be in the nature of huge emotional displacements and rearrangements." There's the spiritual experience. It is the nature of huge emotional displacements and rearrangements. Our feet will grasp new soil. We become something different because of a spiritual experience. We are rewired in the brain. We act different. We talk different. We think of other people before ourselves, right? Ideas, emotions, and attitudes which were once the guiding force of the lives of these men are suddenly cast to one side, and a completely new set of conceptions and motives begin to dominate them. In fact, I have been trying to produce such emotional rearrangement within you. With many individuals, the methods I have employed are successful, but I've never been successful with an alcoholic of your description. Upon hearing this, our friend was somewhat relieved, for he reflected that after all, he was a good church member. This hope, however, was destroyed by the doctors telling him that while his religious convictions were very good, in his case, they did not spell the necessary vital spiritual experience. Here was the terrible dilemma in which our friend found himself when he had the extraordinary experience, which, as we have already told you, made him a free man. We in turn sought the same escape with all the desperation of drowning men. What seemed at first a flimsy reed has proved to be the loving and powerful hand of God. A new life has been given us, or if you prefer, a design for living that really works. And that's what I needed. I mean, I literally needed to be taught how to be honest. But first, before I could figure that out, I had to see where I was being dishonest, how I was being dishonest, the process in which I was utilizing things in order to be dishonest. Without that, I continued to lie. I needed a new way of living, and it had to be a total rearrangement. It had to be a total rearrangement. The distinguished American psychologist William James, in his book Varieties of Religious Experience, indicates a multitude of ways in which men have discovered God. There's no one way. There's no one way. There's as many experiences as of finding God as there are people in the program. That's how many there are. And there's a lot. And that is because you may not be terminally unique, but you are beautifully unique. Absolutely, you are. And so, therefore, your needs, your wants, your thought process is going to be different than mine. Your perception of this world is going to be different than mine. And we need it. We need that experience in AA. We have no desire to convince anyone there's only one way by which faith can be acquired. If what we have learned and felt and seen means anything at all, it means that all of us, whatever our race, creed, or color, are the children of a living creator with whom we may form relationships upon simple and understandable terms as soon as we are willing and honest enough to try. When I see other people, do you know what I see? Children of God. These people are my brothers. These people are my sisters, and we are spiritually connected. We are. We're spiritually connected. But sometimes I'm the one that needs to make that spiritual connection. I did it when I went to Kaiser earlier. Right? And I will intentionally say out loud in public that I'm a recovering alcoholic just so I know who needs help. Yes, I do that on purpose. It is a form of manipulation. Not all manipulation is bad. See, earlier I was talking about I was abusing those things, and now I don't. And somebody did need help. I don't believe that I went down there to get an appointment for tomorrow. I had to be down there. See, God had a different plan. I thought I was going down to get my finger looked at. Nope, that is not what was going to happen. Now, and I could have just as easily gotten angry that I'm like, you said you're a walk-in clinic and blah, 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 and make their day harder and stuff. But I kind of knew it was coming. Even when I was driving down there, I said, okay, Dion, we have a tough time in these situations. So let's just go in with a good attitude. And that should help with that. That's why that happened. That's why it happened. Right? I know, Michelle, it'll always blow your mind. Michelle says we're all one. That still blows my mind. And it will. It's neat to be a part of it. Finally. And then you get there and you realize that all the people that you thought had everything that you wanted when you were growing up and all the cool people and the popularity, and it means nothing. It means nothing. Yeah, just being a child of God. Sounds good. 15 more minutes. With a 3 o'clock meeting coming up, I will be there. So it's when I'm going to do my dishes. Those having religious affiliations will find nothing disturbing to their beliefs or ceremonies. There is no friction among us over such matters. We think it no concern of ours what religious bodies our members identify themselves with as individuals. This should be an entirely personal affair which each one decides for himself in the light of past association or present choice. Not all of us join religious bodies, but most of us favor such memberships. Yeah, I will support it. Great job. I'm glad that you do that. I'm glad that you're getting closer to God. I'm glad, and and you're doing it in your preference. That's even better, man. Good job. Well, it took me a little while, but I now often, instead of seeing all those humbums and they're just bench warmers and they're this and they're that. And I don't really do that anymore. I'm not saying I don't get intrusive thoughts. It sure happens. But when it comes down to it, they are children of God also. So I try and see where religious people are correct. Now I search for that correctness. Because all I have left now, after all the bullshit, the lying, the conniving, the manipulating, all the horrendous crap that I did, there's only one thing I'm really left with now, and it's the truth. And I don't mind it. And I'm always searching for the truth. It isn't a matter of whether I'm right or wrong, or if you're right or wrong. It's what is the right thing? That's what I want to know. What's the right way to do that to help as many people as I can? In the following chapter, there appears an explanation of alcoholism as we understand it. Then a chapter addressed to the agnostics. Many who were once in this class now are now among our members. Surprisingly enough, we find such convictions no great obstacle to a spiritual experience. No, in fact, it usually tends to be the people that know a lot of that have a big religious background that seems to have the hardest time with it. That's what I've seen, not my experience. So that is an opinion only, just so you know. And I'm probably wrong, but that's what I've kind of seen. So further on, clear-cut directions are given showing how we recovered. These are followed by 42 personal experiences. Each individual in the personal stories describes in his own language and from his own point of view the way he established his relationship with God. These give a fair cross-section of our membership and a clear-cut idea of what has actually happened in their lives. We hope that no one will consider these self-revealing accounts in bad taste. Our hope is that many alcoholic men and women desperately in need will see these pages and believe that it is only by fully disclosing ourselves and our problems that they will be persuaded to say, yes, I am one of them too. I must have this thing. One of the neatest things in the program that happens is when somebody else finds you and they want what you have. It's a new experience and it's very joyful. There's a big, because you're just being you. And you're like, well, I'm not anything special. That's not true. That's not true. You're special, man. Absolutely. Your experience is a little bit more unique. You got some beautiful things about you. Some of us have variations of different things. Some people are good at tie-dye, like this shirt. Amber made this shirt. She's just really good at it. I can barely draw a stick, man, but I'm really good at sitting down and getting people enthusiastic about recovery. That's my forte. I'm gonna tell you something. By nature, I'm an introvert. By nature. This is, but I don't know what it is, because for the most part, I'm pretty introverted. Then when people come around, I get extroverted for some reason. I don't know what it is. Okay. I think it's because I'm an emotional vampire. I feed off your feelings. I really do. And a lot of times, even while I'm here talking, I can feel your feelings And God, because I asked God, God, please help me with the right title, help me with the right topic so that I can reach the person out there that you need me to reach. And he does it every single time. And I get a thrill. It's the best high I've ever known. That's why I go live 2-3 times some days. Because I'm one of those people where feeling good, I just can't seem to get enough. Right? All right. All right. All right. All right. For my Matthew McConaughey fans, that's going to be it for this one. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I hope you have a happy Friday. We'll see you tomorrow for the Daily Trudge. I love you. You know I do. Peace out. And